Thank you for listening to our podcast on YouTube. We are super excited about the content coming your way.
Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of it. Welcome to the Face to Face Ministries podcast. I'm Kathy Little.
And I'm Melinda Wilson, and we are talking all things inner healing, true connection with Jesus, and the full benefits package of the cross. Thank you for joining us.
We are off and running.
We are moving
forward. So this is episode 2. And what we're doing in episode 2, we figured, since we're new to the game, that many of you might not know who we are or why we're doing this on inner healing. So what we're going to do today is Melinda is actually going to share a little bit about her experience with inner healing and also just some of her story. So I'm going to turn it over to Melinda and just say, hey, why don't you introduce all of our millions and millions of listeners to who you are and why you're so passionate about inner healing?
Well, first of all, we only have 750,000 followers right now, but we're getting to 1 million very soon. And we thank you that you're part of that.
Well, we're doing it with everybody's help because when they subscribe, when they share, when they rate us with 5 stars, it helps get the word out even better. So everybody can have a part in getting the word out. So it's pretty good. We're gonna take that 750,000. We'll just pretend that that's prophetic.
Yes.
Okay. That's prophetic. All right.
Going up to millions.
There you go.
So you asked me to share about my journey with inner healing, and I was introduced to inner healing actually as a child. I remember John and Paula Sanford are grandfather and grandmother of the inner healing movement, really. And I remember seeing their books in my house growing up. Of course, I didn't have a concept of what that was or who they were at that point, but I was very fortunate to grow up in a home that where Jesus was Lord, and where a love for Jesus, a faith in Jesus, and a love for prayer was cultivated and really shown to me in tangible ways. And I'm so thankful for those deep roots that really go down into rich soil of who Jesus is and what prayer can do. I remember even as a child, starting at 4 or 5, hearing about people being sick, and my first reaction was, "We got to pray for them. We got to pray for them."
That's a great foundation, man.
Yeah,
Seriously.
And bringing prayer requests to school. I did go to Christian school, and praying for friends of my parents or friends of friends. And I look back at that and I think, wow, that's actually a gift of faith. I believe that God implanted in my heart. Of course, gifts are irrevocable. Gifts are given to us. Maybe we didn't even know that they were given to us. And I look back, I'm like, thank you, Lord, for that gift of faith. That was my first reaction to hearing about someone in need or in trouble who are sick. And so later in life, as we start discovering that we have stuff in our heart, we all experience wounds. We all experience trauma. We cannot get out of this life, no matter how great of a life we had, without experiencing wounds and trauma and hurt, because it's just the world we live in, right?
Part of the human experience.
Yes.
And even Jesus said, in the world you will have trouble, but he has overcome the world. So there's an amazing benefits package to his overcoming the world that is right in line with what you're saying. We all have our stuff.
And it's really beneficial, invaluable to discover that benefits package, that it's not just about being saved and going to heaven, but there's a fruitful and abundant life that we can have despite what we've experienced in life. And so from just some traumatic things I experienced when I was younger, I went through a lot of my, I would say, late teens, 20s into my 30s, really with an orphan mentality, orphan heart. Basically, that means I did not feel like I belonged anywhere. I believed lies that I was alone. And even though God had put me in just surrounded me with amazing people throughout my life and fulfilled a lot of dreams in my heart from a young age. And another thing that was established in me as a youngster, as a child, really, God put a call on my life to missions and ministry from before I even knew what that was. I used to read encyclopedias and read about other cultures and look at other countries' flags. This is going way back. Encyclopedia.
Yeah, I was thinking that we probably need to explain the encyclopedia thing for the millennials, because it's kind of like what Wikipedia was, only in book form. And then you'd have a whole set of them from A to Z, and then every year get a new one delivered with all the updates from the previous year.
Right, exactly.
Oh my gosh, that is so old school. But yeah, you used to have to read concrete like book
paper.
Yeah, paper
pages.
Wow.
And
no screen time back then, eh?
What?
No screen time back then.
No
You're just
screen
always
time.
in the book.
And so I was so fascinated with other countries, and looking back as an adult, I was like, that's not totally normal, because God had just put in me a heart for the nations. And at 16, I went on my first missions trip overseas for 2 whole months. We worked hard. This was no Hotel Hilton, mission trip. And then the next summer I went to Papua New Guinea, got malaria, got all those things that, my missionary badge.
Jeez.
But
I've heard some of those stories too. They're pretty crazy.
At 16, I strongly felt the Lord call me to full-time Christian ministry. Again, at that time, I did not even know what that was. I knew I wanted to be a missionary. I knew I wanted to serve the Lord in whatever capacity. But I also knew I loved other countries and wanted to see other cultures. And through my life, I had always loved Australia because of koalas. And if anyone knows even the tiniest bit about me, they would know I'm pretty obsessed with koalas.
Yeah. Can we just sit there for a second? Because she means it, people. I'm just saying, she doesn't just like koalas. She's obsessed with koalas.
No shame.
Yeah. It's a big deal. Koalas make you giddy.
They do.
And so, but shopping for you for Christmas is actually pretty easy. If I'll just find socks with koalas on it, or a shirt that says, I just like koalas. Okay, get over it. But yeah, she loves koalas.
I do. And so if you ever want to bring me joy, just send me a koala, anything. And so I remember at finding out, well, let me go back. I always prayed that I would be able to live in Australia so that I could be close to koalas. And I would beg God, Lord, help me to be able to live in Australia. I will clean up dog do. I will dig ditches. I will do anything. And I know that sounds funny, but at the time I had no concept of the Father heart of God, of the goodness of God, that He would not, okay, Melinda, yeah, you can go to Australia, but you're going to have to dig ditches and clean up dog do. And that literally was my prayer. When I was 17, 18, I just so wanted to go to Australia and live there that I would be willing to do anything. And I was approaching God as a servant or as a slave, as a subject rather than as a daughter, as royalty. And so fortunately, the Lord answered that prayer. I found out about Youth with a Mission. I ended up living in Australia for over 5 years, getting my undergrad degree. In Australia, I had the privilege of holding koalas many times. And the Lord, so I'm saying the Lord gave me the desires of my heart. Didn't have to dig ditches or clean up dog do, but I got to experience the life as a missionary, being on drama teams, holding koalas, living in Australia for 5 years. And God had put that desire there. And I, over the years, then learned that I wasn't serving Him out of a servitude heart. I really loved Him, but there still was some performance there. There was, I'll do anything for you, just let me do this, instead of, Lord, these are the desires of my heart. How can I see these manifest in my life? Because an orphan begs, an orphan pleads, and a daughter doesn't, royalty doesn't, a princess doesn't. Zipping forward several years, I really was introduced to the concept of inner healing. Well, actually, I was introduced to the concept of inner healing in Australia at about age 19 or 20. experiencing the Father heart of God for the first time and what that means. And then another desire of my heart was fulfilled moving to Western North Carolina, a place that when I first landed there, I was like, Lord, I would love to live here one day. And a couple of years later, he presented me the opportunity to be able to live there. One of the most beautiful places on earth. And I landed in a church that had an incredible healing rooms. And they, not necessarily just physical, but everything, spirit, soul, mind, body. I was invited to be a part of these healing rooms and was not only trained in different healing modalities, but I experienced the different inner healing modalities for myself. So I was a student and a prayer minister at the same time. I think it's one of the best ways to dive into inner healing is it's happening to you, but you're also leading other people in inner healing.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. You got thrown into that, totally not even going after it or being prepared for that, but you were learning and experiencing it all in the same boat. That's pretty cool. And you mentioned about the different inner healing modalities. Basically, what does that mean? I mean, because there's inner healing, and that's like a big, broad concept. But what do you mean by different inner healing modalities? Because that's a big piece of what we're doing with the media project. So why don't you just share just what that means? What is that? Different modalities. What's that look like?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned John and Paula Sanford, and they started something called Elijah House, and it's a particular form of praying through different wounds and allowing Jesus to bring healing. I won't go into details about the format of that,
well,
but
that's all going to unfold over
that will unfold, and we're
you guys going to have to subscribe to get, because that is what we're doing, is sharing about these inner healing modalities.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Well, and the Lord really, I believe, gave revelation to many different people along the way and through the years. And so out of that was birthed Sozo and Theophostic and the Emmanuel approach and restoring the foundations and many others that I won't name, but they all, the whole goal of all of these inner healing modalities is to bring us freedom, is to experience that abundant life that we're talking about, the benefits package of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I think we mentioned that we interviewed Donna Da Silva, and just without saying too much about that, one of the questions we were talking about is sozo for everybody, and that just means saved, healed, and delivered. And she said one size doesn't fit all, which is why God is so gracious in giving different people revelation of inner healing models.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of like a diet.
Yes.
Like for some people, the keto thing doesn't work.
Right.
For some people, the vegetarian thing doesn't work.
Right.
Or for other people, whatever plan A, some people do great on Weight Watchers and some people don't. And so there is that different approach based on who you are, what you've experienced, what tools you need to get through whatever it is you need to get through as you pursue healing. So it is kind of like a diet. Those are the different ways, all with the same goal, different paths to it.
Yeah, that is because, Jesus just wants us free. So whether you go get a sozo, a lot of you may have heard that, or whether you go pray with someone in go to Restoring the Foundations or Elijah House, whatever, the Lord is about setting us free and getting us healed. Back to my experience with the healing rooms in Western North Carolina, so much of the healing came because I was part of a family.
Yeah.
And one thing that they sang over and over again was healing does not happen outside of community. Healing does not happen in isolation. So the reason for me it was so profound and powerful and effective was that I was part of a family. I was invited into this family. I had mothers and fathers and aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters. We were all different ages. We ministered to one another. We knew each other's stuff. We were vulnerable with each other. We were authentic, and we practiced on one another as well as the people coming in for prayer. And so it was a safe place. It was a safe place to grow, a safe place to heal. And I saw family modeled in a very healthy way. Was it perfect? No. Was it healthy?
What family is perfect? Come on.
But it was healthy, and that's the important part. This imperfect but healthy family was so healing for me and for everyone involved, that many of us are still in touch with each other, still have deep relational ties because of what the Lord did in us and through us. And I'm so thankful that the Lord promises to put the lonely in families. I don't remember which psalm that is, but that's certainly what he did for me and many of us in the healing rooms. And another thing that came out of, so many, I could talk about it for days, what the Lord did. And, it continues. Yeah. It's not just, 8 years ago when I was part of the healing rooms, I experienced all this and God hasn't done anything since. There's always more layers. He takes us deeper. He has to bring us to one place so that he can take us to another. What he does is he builds our capacity to receive his healing. And maybe 10 years ago, I was ready to receive healing in one area at one depth, but I wouldn't have been prepared or had the capacity to receive that healing, the healing that he's done in me recently. So he prepares us in a sense. He builds our capacity. I used to believe that I had to clean myself up before coming to him. I used to believe that in order to even have a quote unquote quiet time, I had to make sure that I confessed all these sins, even if I hadn't sinned, find something to confess, and kind of plead and beg and make me clean before I can come before you. And he has radically changed my paradigm. It took a few years. I will confess, it took a few years of, you know what? He is happy to be with me as I am right now. He loves me in my best moment, the same as he loves me in my worst moment.
That's right. Yeah.
He has never turned his back to me. I have turned my back to him, but he has never turned his face away from me. And so there's no prerequisite to coming into his presence. I love what Dr. Jim Wilder says. And we will be interviewing him, and it's going to be exciting.
Yes.
And he says that the definition of joy is knowing that someone is happy to be with you. If we know that Jesus is always happy to be with us, we can experience that joy, even in our deepest pain, even in our worst moments, even when we aren't happy to be with ourselves.
Yeah.
He is always happy to be with us. He likes when I just sit down with him and chat, or when I go for a walk. He loves that I invite him on that walk with me. And so I think that's one of the biggest, I would say, heart healings that the Lord has done in me over the years, is first bringing me out of that orphan thinking, approaching him as a daughter, approaching him as royalty, and knowing that Jesus is always happy to be with me. If we get that, y'all, if we get that, it will transform our lives in the way that we see ourselves, the way that we see others, and the way that we see him.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's been interesting because, I've had my own healing journey. We're going to talk about that in our next episode. But even in the 8 years now since God partnered us up in ministry, we've experienced those layers of healing even together as we're moving forward. And you feel like, sometimes, like you were saying, that I've got to be all cleaned up before I do this. And God in his mercy, he knows that we're human, and he does take us layer by layer from glory to glory. But I'll tell you, if we waited until we had arrived, nothing would get done for the kingdom, because none of us is perfect. None of us is finished, and none of us will be finished this side of eternity. And, we're spiritual beings having a physical existence, and that physical existence has some opposition to it and has some hard to it. But in the midst of the hard, Jesus is happy to be with us, and he is always there, and being able to invite him into the day-to-day. I was just having this conversation with somebody recently about dualism and how we tend to separate the sacred and the secular and feel like, well, we have to have this concentrated spiritual time, quote unquote, and then I'm going to go do my job and do my thing out here, and then I'll come back and be in my prayer closet later on, and then I'll go out here and I'll do my, my office work or my whatever it is I'm doing. But God is really relational, and he wants to be in relationship with us, whether we're in a quiet prayer closet doing concentrated devotions or prayer or whatever, just as much as when we're out in the marketplace or in school or hanging out with friends, learning how to have that intimacy with him on a regular basis and growing into the knowledge that, hey, he wants to be with me even if I'm really having a bad day. Hey, he wants to be with me even if I'm really angry about XYZ. Hey, he wants to be with me even if I just blew it for the 7th time.
Right.
In something I said I would never do again, kind of thing.
And I'll want to circle back real quick to what you said about that he doesn't wait for us to be completely whole before he partners with us. And that's another thing, is that I have taken use us out of my vocabulary. We all know what that means, but the scripture, and I don't know where it is, it's in the New Testament, it's one of the epistles, that we co-labor with him,
right,
that we are in cooperation with him, that we get to co-create with him.
Right.
And so instead of God is using me to do this, God is choosing me to cooperate with him in this adventure, in this ministry, in this praying for someone, whatever that is. And what an honor and privilege to partner with Jesus,
right,
to help someone see freedom. And I remember about 14 years ago, someone asked me, Melinda, what is the deepest passion of your heart? And I journaled this, and it was a really marker moment. What do you really feel called to do? To see people set free.
Yeah.
And at that point, I didn't even know the fullness of that, but I knew that was a calling on my life. And so I'm incredibly thankful that the Lord has given me opportunities to partner with him to see people set free, and there's going to be many more in the midst of my own healing journey, in the process of my own healing, even when I have messed up, even when, oh my gosh, I'm getting this intense inner healing during this season, and yet he is still partnering with me to minister to others. What grace that is.
Right.
Amazing grace of Jesus.
It is amazing. And what an amazing adventure and journey that when we get that he wants to partner with us, he wants to use us, he wants to involve us in what he's doing here on the earth. What a beautiful transition of thought process to have that perspective. It's pretty awesome. Thanks for sharing today. I'll tell you.
You're welcome.
It's so good to hear Melinda's heart. And is there anything else you want to add before we wrap?
Oh, I could talk for ages.
Well, yes,
but
we know.
We want to keep people listening.
Well, keep people coming back for
more.
more.
Well, thank you for joining us today for the Face to Face Ministries podcast. We're so excited to have you join us on the journey, because this really is a journey, and we're exploring, and we're so glad that you're with us together. And we look forward to sharing more and even hearing from you what it means to walk in the full benefits package that Jesus has provided for us.
Yeah, we just want to invite you to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss anything. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be putting some video clips there from the interviews that we've done so far. Follow us on Instagram. It's Face to Face Men, Face 2 TO Face Men. You can private message us there. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you there. You can ask us anything, and we'll cover some of those questions here on the podcast as we move forward. And we'd also love if you would give us a 5-star rating and share us, because the more visibility we can get, the more people are going to get to hear the message of, hey, there is a full benefits package that is all yours for the taking, and we don't have to live in our stuff, We don't have to live in our stuff. We can be free. We can walk in wholeness. So it'd be great to have you guys join us. For more information on us, facetofaceministries.org is the website. And also, if the podcast is blessing you and you would like to invest financially in that, we would really appreciate that. It actually does cost some money to do a podcast. And we'd love to have you come on board and sponsor us. So Thanks so much for being part of this, and we will catch you soon. Next time, I'll be sharing some stuff. So
Look forward to seeing you.
Bless you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. For more information about us and our vision, please go to face2faceministries.org. That's faceministries.org.
Please like, share, subscribe, rate, review. Help us
Get the word out.
There is so much more to come.